Hello, Cameron coming to you from the wonderful city of Geelong in Victoria, Australia. Today I'm going to do for you a review on the film Yesterday. Now, looking at the cover and the title, you can probably gather it is a Beatles themed film, and I decided to do this movie review on the anniversary of John Lennon's death. 39 years ago, he was shot by a deranged fan. So, without any further ado, I'll review the movie. Now, there are spoilers in my video, so if you have not seen this film and you want to see it, please don't watch anymore till you've seen it. Or if you don't care, keep going. But yeah, look, without any further ado, I'm going to review it now. Now, look, just a bit of a background. Imagine it was something you really liked, and then, let's say for whatever reason you were knocked out or had an accident or something, and then when you came to, this particular thing you really liked did not exist anymore. Now, in the film, the film Yesterday, that is pretty much what goes on. Now, we've got a hero of the film, Jack Mallock, who is a singer-songwriter, a struggling musician, you'd probably say, and because of a power blackout, he ends up in an accident, is knocked out, and then when he comes to, something he cherished dearly, which was the Beatles, no longer exists. So what happens is when he first comes to, he makes a sort of Beatles reference. You know, most people would get it, and they didn't. Now, also a little bit later on, because his guitar was broken in the accident, what has happened is his friends give him another guitar, and so with this guitar he plays the song Yesterday. Now, his friends do not recognise it, and they said, that is a lovely piece of music. When did you come up with a time to create that? And he's like, you're kidding? That I did not write this song. That is Yesterday. Paul McCartney wrote it. Who's Paul McCartney? Blah, 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 He can't believe it. Yeah, hero Jack Mallock, who's the singer-songwriter, he eventually, after, making several references to the Beatles, he decides that he will Google the Beatles to see if they exist. Now, when he Googles the Beatles, results for like the Volkswagen Beetle come up, and the insect beetles, they come up, but there is no reference to the Fab Four. Funnily enough, the Rolling Stones do exist. That's a bit strange, but for whatever reason in this world that our hero Jack has awoken to, there are no Beatles. Eventually, our hero realises he can cash in on this. He can release the Beatles songs himself. So, he brainstorms and tries to come up with, remember the lyrics, with a lot of success. Funnily enough, he can't remember the lyrics to Eleanor Rigby, of all songs. But, a lot of the really famous Beatles songs he comes up with and performs them, gets a record contract to release them, and, he's in the big time on the back of the Beatles. Funnily enough, there's about one or two other people who know about the Beatles. Don't know why, because they don't exist in this world. But other than that, he's free to pretty much release the Beatles' music. But this would be in modern times, in today's time. So people try to persuade him to change the lyrics to a certain extent. Funnily enough, Ed Sheeran appears in this film. Well, I don't know if it's funnily enough, but for whatever reason, Ed Sheeran is in it, and Ed Sheeran tries to convince Jack to change some of the lyrics of some of the Beatles' songs. At the same time, this is like a rom-com theme going through the film, and Jack has a steady girlfriend, and probably one way of describing this is he has to choose between the girl or becoming famous for releasing the Beatles' music. And so it's pretty much a love story as well. And probably happy ending for everybody is that, he chooses the girl, but, the Beatles' music can still be released. He realises, the Beatles are too good to not be known about. Their music's too good not to be heard, I suppose is a better way of saying it, because, obviously, they're never going to know about the Beatles because they didn't exist. He realises that the music needs to be released, so he gets a friend to release the music for free, which of course really ticks off the lady who was sort of like the record executive in the film and was going to be releasing the music with a contract with Jack. Now, interesting point in this film, or an interesting theme, or just a story, I suppose you'd say, an interesting story that he's added to this film is that John Lennon is not dead. He's not, of course, the famous Beatle, and naturally, I suppose, because of that, he wasn't killed by a deranged fan. But yes, look, the writers of this film decided to put John Lennon in it, and he just comes across as like an unassuming old man at this stage. Of course, he's nearly, if he was still alive today, he'd be nearly 80, or he'd be 79, He's just an old man who, unassuming old man, lives at home, and Jack visits him, and, John Lennon makes him a cup of tea. It's quite an interesting thing, but, this is probably a way of describing this film is that it is a love story, and our hero chooses the girl over fame. So probably, yes, not really much else to say about this film. So I will leave it at that. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.